Hello and welcome. This is Juraj Mojik with Resco. I'm a product manager here, and I would like to show you today new features of Resco Mobile CRM version 10.2. The webinar will start shortly. I just want to say a couple of things first. You are all muted at the moment, but feel free to write your questions during the webinar into the GoToWebinar window, and I will answer them at the end of the webinar. So anything that comes to your mind, feel free to write it there. Also, this webinar is being recorded and will be uploaded to YouTube shortly afterwards, where it will be available for viewing later. So let me start with this long overdue webinar episode, because today I will be talking about our version 10.2, and that's the release that we have done in autumn last year, precisely October 11th, 2017, so maybe almost half a year has passed. And there we have added more than 35 new features, and some of which I want to show you today. So this is what I will go through. This is the first thing is opening home item after launch, then previewing offline changes. These are mostly related to the user experience of the mobile application. Then we have two new features around the map area, so new styles that you can add on top of the map, which is a very interesting feature, and setting up initial position and zoom for the existing maps. Finally, I will go through additions in rules and JavaScript, most notably the way to format texts and modify home items and show notifications. So here you can see this little number right next to the icon. This is something that I will be showing as one of the last features today. So let's start very quickly with the first section, considering the user experience. And the first business case and the business problem we tried to solve with this release was the startup experience. And what I mean by this is when the application is being launched and when the application is being started, a lot of the customers, a lot of the partners wanted to open one of the items so that the application doesn't just show the home form, but opens, for example, dashboards or maps or calendars, or perhaps open one of the entities like accounts or leads, or even a custom iframe. This is exactly what we have added, and this feature called Initial Startup Home Item is actually very easy to set up in Woodford. There is this button on the home form, Set Startup, which the selected item on the home form will make as the startup one, which means that it will have these two arrows next to it, and it will mean that it will open at the application launch, so when the user starts the application, but also at the end of every synchronization, but not the background synchronization, just the one which brings new mobile project, so the one which contains new customizations, so the foreground synchronization. However, there is one danger or something you need to think about when using this feature. So far, up until this release, we have designed Resco Mobile CRM so that it doesn't open database on the application start. So even if the database is corrupted, the application will start and will allow user to do something. However, if you open application which has an initial startup item and the database is corrupted for whatever reason, the application might crash and might be unusable for the user. And that is even more true for the custom iframes. If you deploy an iframe that causes the application to crash or causes problems to the users might not have any other choice than to uninstall and reinstall the application. But again, after synchronizing with your server, they might get the same mobile project and the same problem might occur. So please have this in mind when setting up the initial item. Another business problem that we tried to solve with the user experience was the synchronizing experience. And when synchronizing data, we wanted to provide some more visibility to the admins, to the developers at this stage, possibly users in the future as well. And what we wanted to show were the records that are going to be synchronized, or the actions that were performed by the user. So this is how it looks like. There is a new home item called Unsync Data Changes, which shows the offline changes. That means that it shows the changes made by the user and locally. So it will not show the changes from the server, it will just show the actions, the changes that have been done by the mobile application and will be synchronized to the server. It's also showing records and not the fields, so it's on the record level. And the order, which you can see in that list, is the order in which these changes have been done. Additionally, what you can see are the types of the change. So if the record has been modified, created, or deleted, the user can view the record, so see what it's all about. As I said, they cannot yet see the fields. These are not highlighted in any way, but they can view the record. And to see all this, it's very easy to set up again. In the mobile application, there is a change list option in the setup, which just needs to be enabled, and the user can start using it. Again, it's the user who enables this and not the administrator, so not in the Woodford. And I want to show you this in an actual demonstration. So as usual, I will open up the Woodford customization tool, and I will head to Home. There I have the items on the home form, and I can set one of them as the startup. I can choose anyone, but let's use the dashboard as my startup item. And that's it. I can just save and publish my mobile project. As usual, I want to show you this on my mobile device. So let me try to share the screen of an actual iPad. Here it is. So I'll just perform synchronization to get these changes. And as you can see, after the synchronization, the application opened up dashboards. And the same will happen when I kill the app and restart it again. The dashboard is opened right away after startup. Another thing which I can do is go to the setup, and where do we have it? Disable sync login. This will effectively enable background synchronization. So now when I hit the sync button in the top right corner, what will happen? The application will synchronize, and you probably have seen the progress bar, but the dashboard wasn't opened. What I will quickly do, and you will not see it, but I will republish the mobile project. And now when I perform the synchronization, I have a different icon in the top right corner. I'll perform the synchronization like this, which starts the foreground synchronization, and now my dashboard item has been opened again. So very simple experience, and something that adds a lot for the users opening one of the items on the home form right after the start. Another thing I've talked about were the offline changes. And to enable that, I have to go to Setup again and go to Appearance, and there enable Change List. So this one. save the setup. And what you notice here is the change list item as the first item on the home form. When I open it up, it shows the unsynced data changes, but there are none. I haven't performed any modifications or I haven't created any records. So let's go to accounts, open one of the accounts, for example this one, and add the fax number. Okay, let's make it like this. And if I go right away to the change list, here is where the information is stored. So my account has been modified, this is the name of the account, and this is the action that it has been updated. Now the synchronization has been performed in the background, so if I close this list, for example by going onto the accounts and go back to the change list, you can see that it's clear, and as I said, all the changes that were done between two synchronizations would be shown here, but as soon as I synchronize, the changes are gone. Okay, I think that this part should be quite clear, so let me move to my presentation and continue with just another section, which is the changes we have done with the maps. Now again, I will start with a business case or a problem that we try to solve. And again, this comes from requests from you, our partners and customers, where you had a certain map that you wanted to show. For example, for the associated records on a form, the predefined zoom was maybe too large or usually too small. You wanted to show more on the map that by default that it shows. Or you wanted to show a specific region with for a specific location because you know that the records for the customer or your records are actually there in that location, and zooming onto the current position of the user is not always what you want. So to accommodate for this, we have added the initial map, zoom, and position. Now, with the version 10.2, which I'm showing today, and which is from the October 2017, it's available for associated tabs. So if you have a form, there you have a tab, which is a map, or actually a list, which can be flipped to a map. I will show you in a moment. There you can set up the position and the zoom. With the version 11.0, which is currently in the making and which will be available in March 2018, the same setup will be available for global maps as well. Another problem that we try to solve with the update to the maps is quite typical actually. There are companies, customers, who have their own data they want to show on the map. For example, they perform some work on the power lines or transit lines or some pipes in the ground or on some wind turbines in the sea. So basically data that is not usually shown on the standard map, and it's not probably just shown with a simple pin. There might be lines, there might be polygons, squares, whatever you need to draw on the map to provide guidance to the users. So how do we do this? How do we enable showing additional data on the map? We have used Mapbox for this, and first I want to tell you a bit more about Mapbox. Is a third-party solution that we have integrated into the mobile application. This is available for iOS and Android. You have to go to setup to use it. And actually, this feature offers offline maps. So even when there is no connectivity, the users can work with the maps. The maps are specified by the administrator, and therefore these maps are downloaded during synchronization. I have covered this with one of the previous webinars, so if you want to know more about it, check one of our previous webinar recordings. But what's also interesting these Mapbox maps can be used also online with connectivity, and they provide a different set of maps, which can be utilized also to our use case. So we want to have custom map styles and additional layers on top, and that can be done with Mapbox. There are two things which you need to do. Obviously, you need to set this up in Mapbox. I will show you what I have done. But additionally, you have to provide the Mapbox access token into configuration and specify your custom type when specifying the offline map regions. But we'll get to that in the demonstration. So once again, I will switch to Woodford and start modifying my project there. And the first thing I showed you for the map were the initial positions and zoom. So I'll open up the account edit form and put context list in there. Now the nice thing which I can do here is double click that, which opens properties. Now, as you can see, there are quite a few of them, but I will go to the very last tab, and here I can do some setup, which is that I want to disable chart and calendar. I don't want to use that for now, but I'm fine with list and a map. But I will also make sure that it opens as a map and only later can be flipped to a list. So what I've done here, I've added the context list, and I will show it to the user as a map. And I can do additional setup for that map, which is the one which I want to show you today. And I can click on this one from the map, which opens Bing Maps. I can zoom out. Yeah, we are somewhere in the middle of the sea, but I actually want to zoom this map on New York, because most of my data, I know that they are in US, and I know that my sales guys, they are active in the New York regions, so I want to make the map zoom on this exact position with this exact zoom level. I can save, as you can see, it pre-filled my values. This can be pre-filled manually as well, but I use the map. I want to save this and publish my customizations. So let's check this in the mobile app again. All right, I have my new update ready. So I can download this and go to my accounts. Again, let's open Active Cycling. And let me open the edit form. Go to contacts. And as you can see, my map is zoomed onto New York and shows the exact position and exact zoom level as I have defined. I should have my contacts here somewhere. But to maybe make a quick check, I can go back onto the contact information form for the account, open contacts, which you can see here, and I can flip them to the map. And as you can see, it zooms right on one of the contacts. It doesn't show both of them, and I can zoom out to show the exact level which I wanted. So probably it would be a better idea for me to set this map over to Seattle, but for the sake of demonstration, I think this was enough and you could understand how it works. Now, the second part of the demonstration, I would like to show you there the custom layers and styles which you can put on the map. And to do that, I will start with showing the Mapbox. Yeah, here, this one. Just a moment. Okay, so this is the Mapbox. As I said, this is the third-party products, so I don't want to go too deep into this, but I'm in their studio where I can define my own maps and work with them. One of the things I've done here is I have created a new style of the map. So instead of using the standard maps as they look usually, I decided to use this light scheme. Let me open that up. So what you see is that the map is somehow grayscale, so it's not that colorful as usual, and it has also something additional on the map. These are the New York transit lines. This is a data set that I had from somewhere, and I've done it by adding new layers onto the map and providing colors for them. So this might be useful for a company which is working on the transit lines in New York and wants to know exactly where they are, how they are layered into the city, and where can they perform the actual work. So this is actually already prepared as I wanted, so I don't want to do any modifications here, but what I need to do is I get to get this style URL. I can copy it. Let me open up Woodford back again and put that URL in there. So for that, I have to open this global maps, which I have here, and open the offline map region. And I can add one. And into the type, I will paste what I have copied from the Mapbox, which defines my style, the light theme, and also the additional layers. So I can name it New York subway. I can also put it as the label, which the users will see in the application. And I can basically ignore this part, which is defining the offline map regions. I just need the map to take the specification of the style. And here I can click OK, save the map region, and then synchronize the app. I will not do that at the moment, but I will also show you that here I need to provide the Mapbox access token, which I again can get from the Mapbox tool. Once I had this set up and hit publish, I would see it in the application. The application would perform synchronization for me, would download some of the Mapbox regions for the offline use. Since that takes a bit of a time, I've decided that I will download it first and show it to you right away. So again, I have it ready on my iPad. Let me just start the screen sharing and open it up for you to show it how it looks. Okay, this is probably a little bit smaller than expected. Let me see if I can do something with it. It's probably the same, so I don't want to lose too much time on this. So here the map, as you can see down here, it says Mapbox. That means that I'm already using the Mapbox provider. For that to happen, I had to go to setup and change the map there. I will show you that afterwards. But here is my map. And if I click on this satellite icon, I can select from the styles. There are the standard styles like the street and satellite, but there is the new style which I have created called New York Subway. And if I click on that, it will actually use that style. So as you can see, with this, I have not only a different look of the map, and it doesn't have to be only about colors, that look of the map can have also different elements on it. Maybe it can focus on different types of buildings or infrastructure there, but also I have my custom layers on top. So again, if there would be power lines, if there would be pipes, if this would be transit as I have here, I can use it and I can show it to my mobile users. If I go to setup and open the map section in here, you can see that in the show map I have Mapbox. If I open that and move to the default, that would open up the standard Apple Maps on iOS, and in case of Android, that would use the Google Maps instead of Mapbox. The final section of today's webinar is about additions to rules in JavaScript. And again, I will start by maybe describing, some of the business problems that we try to solve with this release. And the first one was, how would you create texts for example, emails or notifications? These typically contains fields from entities. So if you are constructing an email, you probably want to use the contact's name or a lead's name, and so on. If you are showing notification to the user, maybe you want to use some data from the entity. And if you would like to do it with the rules, with the previous versions, this would be quite cumbersome. This means that you would have to construct such a text with multiple operations by creating a new variable, adding strings into it, and really constructing it in a 5 or 10 steps depending on how many fields you want to add. It might be a bit easier with JavaScript, but we really wanted to make this easy with the rules as well. So now we have new formatting rules, which work actually similar to email or document templates that you might know. So there is a format text, which takes the entity field name with perhaps additional formatting, or format single, which uses the numbers to identify entity ID, or where can you use the entity name of a lookup. So with just one operation, you can create even very long texts containing fields from an entity or from a variable that you have in a rule. Another problem that we wanted to solve this time with JavaScript was how to display more info to the users. For example, things like how many new records there are, or how many notifications there are, or how many records of a certain type, for example, appointments are there that I have to pay attention to, that I have to complete or do some actions over. Additionally, you can show context information on the home form, so use the home form as a place where the user will see the information that they need very quickly and efficiently. As I said, we have enabled this to be done via JavaScript. There is a new function called update home item async, which takes one of the items on the home form and changes the title. So what do you see here? Subtitle. If it's enabled on the home form, then you can change it as well for some context information. And a new thing, the badge, which is this one, the red circle with the number in it, which I think is the most exciting of the three. One note here is that the badge is automatically placed here next to the icon. So if you start changing the look of your home form, you probably won't be able to change where the badge will be displayed. So enough talking, let me show you this in action. So first we've talked about notifications. So again, let's open the account form. And what I will do here, I will create a custom command. So a new command, which I will call notify. This is a very simple example. You probably could come up with something more useful, but for the sake of the presentation, I'll just use this very simple one. So after pressing this command, after pressing this action, I just want to show a simple message box to the user, showing that they can contact this account via email or via phone, and which is the email and what is the phone number. So I will define a rule, what happens when this command is executed. And I will actually, let me maybe make it a little bit bigger. I'll actually add a variable first. String is fine. This will be notification text. And instead of assign, I will change to format text operation. And I can start writing the text here. And this will be please contact, and I have to use this notation, so this curly brackets, and then entity, please contact, let's do it like this, account at entity.email address, so logical name of that field, or via phone on, again, entity telephone 1, so like this. Now this might not seem like much, but previously if you wanted to construct something like this, you would have to create a variable, maybe start with the first part of the text, like please contact this account, and then you had to add some concatenation, so basically take the test, use concat, then select the entity email address, then or via phone. So as you can see, much more steps, much more clicking, and this just use 2 of the variables. If you wanted to use 10 of the variables, 10 of the fields, that would be even more steps. So let me just delete these unnecessary steps which I had here, and add say text, which just displays a message to the user, and save my rule. So again, after clicking this command, I should see a nice notification in the app. Let me check if we can see it in the mobile app. And here we go. Let me just disable this one. Okay, here we go. So this is our mobile app. Now I can perform synchronization. And if I go into accounts, open a bike store, I have my notify button here in the top. And if I click on that, I have my notification message containing the email, containing the phone. So again, if you want to show notifications, create email texts, or construct any longer text that requires some fields from an entity, this would be an ideal way to do it. The final demo I promised you is about the home form and how you can change the items, put badges on top, and so on. So again, let me go back to Woodford and put there some of the prepared HTML files that I have, and I will show you their content, obviously, and these will be also made available to you via email after the webinar, or if you are watching this on YouTube, they will be available in the link in the description. So what I will do, I will drag some files which I have prepared onto the offline HTML section, like this. There are 2 files, JavaScript Bridge, which I need to make it work, and my HTML file, which I will show you in a second. What I have to do here as a setup, I have to go onto the home form and add an iframe. I will at first select my HTML file, because that's the one I want to use. And instead of a name, I will use home replacement. And I will put it as the first item. It's very important that I name it this way. It has to have this exact name with the exact case, and it has to be the first item. Otherwise, it will not work. And what I want to work is this. Let me show you the content of that file. So here is what happens. There is some standard head section which imports my JavaScript bridge, but then this is the interesting stuff that happens. So when my home form replacement is loaded, and this happens when the application starts, I will hide UI replacement. So instead of using that HTML instead of the standard home form, which is exactly what the home replacement does, I will show the standard home form, so the standard items and not my HTML. I just want this code to run. And what it will do, it will start with checking the password. Now this is important because if the user doesn't have save password enabled, the password will be not available. And if I start fetching records, if I start accessing the database, it might get corrupted. And I don't want that to happen. So what I will do, I will request the configuration object, which actually has this property if the password can be used. And this will be set after the user enters password to get into the application. If it's not there, I will just wait 1 second and check again. And I will do this until the user provides the password. But if the password is provided, I will actually take the synchronization date and get the number of accounts that were modified after the last synchronization. So when I have the number of accounts which have been modified, I will then take the account on the home form and I will put that number in. So I will not put title in, I will not put subtitle in, I want this to be the default one, but I want to show the badge, the number of the records which have been modified, number of accounts which have been modified after last synchronization. And this would be fine, I would be able to see it when I start the application, but I want this number to update every time I modify an account, or every time the application synchronizes when it's running. And for that, I will do another call, and I will register on global events. Now these global events, they can be custom or they can be standard. And the standard provided by Resco, there are a couple of handy ones, but one of the most useful is the close, entity form close. So basically, whenever user closes a form, I will check if that form was an account, and I will restart my logic to count the amount of records that have been modified. So every time user closes an account, I will refresh the number on the home form. And I will do the same thing when the synchronization finishes. Again, this sample will be provided to you, so if you want to use it, feel free to put it in your projects. But I guess now it's time to see this one in action. Okay. Let me switch. Just a little moment. Okay, so now I can do the switch. Okay, you should be seeing the application right now, and I have already performed synchronization as far as I recall, yeah, and let me maybe republish the project again just to make sure. So again, let's perform the sync, let's perform the update. So now my HTML files were loaded into the application, and the application detects that there is the home replacement, which requires a restart of the app. So I'll do that, I'll restart the application, so I'll have to kill it and start it again. And immediately you can notice this little 0 being next to the accounts. That means that my home replacement is in action. It's not showing any HTML here, but it's just doing the logic which we have provided there. So let's open accounts and let's modify one of the accounts. Let's remove that fax number. And immediately the number has increased. Similarly, I can modify another one. Again, let's remove the fax number, save it. And in the meantime, synchronization was happening. I'm not sure if you have noticed that, but the background synchronization was happening, and therefore the number was reduced to 0. Perhaps I should just disable the background synchronization so it will be more clear. But let's open that A-Bike store again. Let's provide something instead of the fax number. Save it. We have the number 1. Similarly, if I modify this one, remove that fax number, save it, it has increased to number 2. And now when I perform the sync manually, okay, here we go. You can see that the number is 0 again. And this badge doesn't have to be used just for the number of modified or created accounts, or as I have been using it for the synchronization, but it can be used for any logic that you might have, so you can provide the JavaScript in any way you like and display the number that corresponds to what your users might expect. So let me switch back to the presentation to conclude what I have been talking about today. So I've been walking you through the most interesting features, at least in my opinion, of the version 10.2. Obviously, these 6 features, they were not all. There is a 30 or almost 30 additional features that we have there, most notably filter operators between and not between, which can be used to filter between the 2 different dates. Qualifying leads on Dynamic CRM now considers parent accounts and parent contacts, so these fields can be set. Resco Chat has been improved. We have private channels and entity notifications. And if you have been trying to use barcodes, which were using the format data matrix, now you can do that with the version 10.2. But as I said, this is still not the full list. And I recommend you to check out the full list on our website. But I also want to talk about the next webinar, because we already have the application 10.3. Here is a little mistake, right? Already out. And I will be talking about that next Thursday at the same time and at the same place, you could say. What's there? What's new in version 10.3? There are actually quite an interesting ones, like adding new records directly in lists, so you don't have to go into the form, but you can add records in the list. You can use global search, as you can see on the screenshot here, to search through multiple entities at the same time, which will be available here on the home form. We have support for Universign for signing documents, which are now legally valid. I will also walk you through the MDM configuration, for which we have added some support. And there is also some styling option that I would like to show you. So as I said, next Thursday, the same time, version 10.3. And before I conclude this webinar, I'll just like to invite you to our conference, Resco.next, which we have in US. It's coming quite soon, in March actually, 14th and 15th. 2 days, all about Resco mobility, especially for Microsoft Dynamics CRM and 365. We will have a people from Microsoft actually speaking, especially about the field service. So if this is your area, I think this is an event you shouldn't miss. It's at Atlanta, Georgia, at the Hotel W. And there are lots of topics we want to cover, like field service, mobile sales, inspections, partner benefits, best practices. You see it on the screen. If you want to know more, if you would like to register, just visit resco.net/next and you will learn more. We have just updated the agenda this week, so you can really dive deep into what we will be talking about there. So I'm almost at the end of my webinar, so let me quickly check what kind of questions we have in the GoToWebinar. Let me open that window. If there are any more questions, feel free to write them down now into the GoToWebinar window, and I will answer that in a sec. So let me quickly read through some of the questions and start answering them. Okay, Sebastian asks about the map improvement that we have added, which is setting the position and the zoom level. And the question is if this can be somehow related to the current user. So based on if it's one of the users, he will see a different position. If it's another user, he will see a different position. So currently these settings are specified in the project. So if your users have different projects, you can achieve this. But there is no way how you could target this functionality to one specific user and then have a different user, have a different initial position in one project. That has to be two separate projects. A question from Denise is about the licensing costs of Mapbox. And here I will have to be honest that I personally do not know, but if you reach out to your Resco account managers, they will be more than glad to provide you some assistance in figuring out what are the costs of this solution. Question from Sebastian about the notifications on the home form and on the items. If the number, if the 0, which you have seen, can be hidden. If it's a 0, if it cannot be shown at all. Now, this is possible, but unfortunately only on some of the platforms. On iOS, this number will show always, but if you put null into the parameter, for example, on the Windows platform, this will be cleared and you will see nothing at all. I think personally that we should unite this behavior, so I'll note it down and check with our developers if and how quickly we can make it available. A question from Nicholas about the color of the badge and potentially the size. Unfortunately, at the moment, these are hard-coded, so it's always red, and the size is updating slightly based on the number in that badge. So that's what we provide at the moment. But if you start utilizing it more heavily, we will be more than happy to extend this functionality to be able to colorize this and maybe even provide you some sizing options. So Daniel has a question about updating that home item badge again, as well, but the question is when it will update. Now, I have written the sample code so that it will update on every time the entity form closes, every time the synchronization happens. And you can do it however you like. You can do it on your own events, which you define, which might retrigger the calculation. I have just done it on these two events because I think this is the most common moment where you would like to recalculate such a number. But as I said, this is up to you. If you use global events, you can do even some more advanced, some more custom events that you will provide. Nicholas is asking about next week's webinar and registration. I think that if you go to our events page on resco.net, there is the registration link. So if you would like to know more about our next webinar, feel free to visit that page and register there. Andrew has a question about our chat, and if the chat messages can create a URL to open a specific record in the chat. That's exactly what I meant by the entity notifications. Basically, you can tag an entity, so a record, and when the user clicks on that, it will open up a specific record. So it can be used probably the way that you are asking about. Nicholas has a question which is not entirely related to today's webinar, but it's about sending a PDF which was generated by our mobile reports feature via email. Now, I have an example for that in JavaScript. So, Nicholas, if you will drop me a line, write me an email to remind me of this, I can share this with you. You are asking about if we have some document that would be detailing this. Unfortunately, we don't have a document, but we can provide you guidance on this via our standard support channels. A couple of last questions. A question by Michael about the size of the offline map. The maps which are being downloaded offline, this really depends on how you set up the regions in Woodford. If you would specify big zooms or a lot of the zoom levels, if you specify big regions, that could take a lot of data. If you just target one specific region, it doesn't have to be that much, but from my experience, the download of these offline data sets can take a little while to complete, especially if you have multiple zoom levels enabled at the same time. Private channels on Resco Chat, a question from Sebastian. If they can be based on CRM teams, yes, absolutely. You can create these chat channels manually or via a plugin, because these are actually records or entities in CRM. So if you create these records, they would create these private chat channels in Resco Chat, so you can use it that way for sure. And final question from Sam about the Resco Next conference, if it will be broadcasted live. Unfortunately, I think that this is mainly an event which you need to attend. Perhaps we might broadcast some parts of it, but there is no plan to really broadcast the whole event, so you can watch all the sessions. You will have to be there in person, but I highly recommend it because you can get much more from it by directly interacting with Resco and not just watching it from your office. One more question popped up from Nicholas. If a chat channel can be created as an action on a rule. If you mean Resco form rules, then that's not possible. But if you mean a rule on the server side, then definitely you can create a channel based on a workflow in CRM. So this will create these automatically. So thank you very much for all the questions. Thank you very much for your attention. I hope you liked what you have seen. And as I said, we have much more for you ready for the next webinar and especially for our conference in March. So once again, thank you for your time and see you hopefully next week.